Right, good evening. This is part two of chapter 22, which is a lymphatic system. And we talked about different parts of the lymphatic system, including the lymph nodes. And lymph nodes are just nodes like stations on the way or on the pathway of the lymph, moving from the interstitial fluid until it reach the venous side, which is specifically what does it reach at the end? What's the largest lymphatic vessels? Thoracic duct and right lymphatic duct. Thoracic duct enter which left subclavian and right lymphatic right subclavian. Yes. Basics. You should know this. And I told you what's the area of drainage. Like right lymphatic drain this quarter up here, and everything else is the thoracic duct. So this is obviously very important. So the lymph nodes are basically on a pathway of the lymph moving all the way back to the venous drainage or the subclavian veins. And as it is moving through, it will clean it from everything that's not supposed to be there, including pathogens, including antigens. Antigen is something on any foreign body. We talked about the antigen before. It's like a marker on anything that tells you what is it. Antigen is like an address. When you see it, you know who is this. This is basically the antigen. So foreign antigens will be removed, any pathogens will be removed, anything toxins will be removed, and so on. It's basically removing and clarifying the lymph as it moves through. Um, so it's basically protecting whatever the location is, the lymph nodes of that area is protecting that area against any pathogens. So those around the gut, those around the lung, and this area is protecting this area. Those around the intestine protecting the intestine. But there are specific areas where the largest lymph nodes are located, and you should know this because this is basically general examination. When they examine, they go to specific spots. These are the large ones that can easy to see, easy to feel, and you can see if it is getting larger or getting harder. And this is specifically here. These are the three most important ones. We have a lot, it's all over the place. But the most important and the largest of all that we have to check it all the time are those at the base of the neck, in the axilla, and in the groin. Otherwise, it's everywhere else. But these are the largest three that can easily get swollen. And if it is swollen, you understand that there is something going on wrong. There is infection. There is something wrong. And are these the only ones? No. These are the clearest, largest, and obvious ones. Lymphadenopathy, lymphadenopathy, three parts. Lymphadeno, lymph node. Translation: lymphadeno, lymph node. Pathy, disease. So lymphadenopathy is a disease of the lymph nodes, and this usually happen due to either infection or cancer. And that's why I've been saying that general examination, when you go to your annual checkup, it is very important that they go like this and feel here and feel here. Simply, if these lymph nodes are larger and harder, it doesn't necessarily mean infection. It can be actually cancer. Cancer can show up here in these lymph nodes. So that's why it's very suspicious. If this is staying for a long time, larger and harder, it might mean something, infection or cancer in both cases, because lymph nodes, remember, what does it do? Get rid of anything that's not supposed to be there. Is the cancer supposed to be there? Of course not. Get rid of the cancer. Pathogens, get rid of the pathogens. Antigens, anything. Toxins, whatever it is. So infection or cancer. This is when you see lymphadenopathy. Of course, it's 90 something percent. It's infection, but there is a minor chance that it is cancer. So that's why they should investigate at least, yeah, at least if it is staying for a long time. Thymus is located here in front of the heart, of the blood vessels of the heart. And basically, thymus, all what I want you to know about it is this is responsible for activation of the T lymphocytes. They secrete something called thymosin. This is what you have to remember. They secrete thymosin. And this maturate and activate T lymphocytes. This is number one. Number two, understand that the thymus is largest when we're born. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller with age to the extent of in older age, you barely see anything. It's like very small and most of it is like fat. Okay? Just like the lymph nodes, the thymus is also any lymphatic organ consists of the same thing. Outside is cortex, inside is a medulla. Lymphocytes, they divide in the cortex outside. They divide here in the cortex. This is where they start. They migrate to the medulla, and there they leave the thymus when they maturate. Thymosin is the hormone that I talked about, which is released from the thymus to maturate T cells. Here is the thymus. Of course, this is big. This is in older age, it doesn't look like this at all. It's a lot smaller. The older you get, the smaller it gets. There are two lobes in the thymus, right and left lobe, and this is good enough to know. Next organ is the spleen. Spleen is one of the lymphatic organs, not lymphatic tissues. Do we still remember the difference? There are organs and tissues, right? If the whole organ is a lymphatic organ, is something versus if it is some tissues in another organ, like intestine, this is an organ. The malt, these tissues, mucosa associated lymphatic tissues, these are some tissues located there. So the organ is digestive, not lymphatic. But the tissues are there. So it's called tissues. While something like the spleen, the whole organ is a lymphatic organ. And the functions of the spleen are very important to remember because it doesn't only do like the lymph nodes. It's, yes, it is cleaning the lymph that's coming to it. It has the lymphocytes as well, macrophages as well. It does clean up and everything, but it has another unique function, which is removing the abnormal blood cells. And we talked about that in the blood, if you guys still remember. We talked about it already. When aged red blood cells, what do we mean aged? What's the age? What's aged? Like it's the end of their life. What's the lifespan? 100, yeah, 120 days on average. They go to the spleen, specifically phagocytes, the big eaters, the macrophages. They eat it, break it down, and you recycle the parts as we talked about um, in the blood. They also initiate the immune response when there is an antigen. They respond by activating and initiating the immune response by T and B lymphocytes, and this is something that's important to know. It's not only fighting infection, it's part of the immune system. It initiates T and B. Remember this. And it remove the aged red blood cells. And the rest is something that we talked about before. There is a ligament attaching the spleen to the stomach to stabilize them and to allow a path for blood vessels, which is called gastrosplenic ligament. And the name gave it away. Gastrosplenic. Gastro is stomach and spleen is spleen. Gastrosplenic ligament is a ligament between the stomach and the spleen. If you look inside the spleen, you will see two pulps. Okay, two types of pulps. One is white and one is red, and the name give it away. The red contain red blood cells. The white contain white blood cells, but it's specifically lymphocytes. Lymphocytes is one of the white blood cells, right? We know that. Lymphocytes are white blood cells. So red contain red, white contain white. Which white? Lymphocytes. Inside the spleen, there are the sinusoids, and I talked about the sinusoids before. It is type of the capillaries, but it is wider, right? And it contain what? What does it contain? What's the difference? Gaps. Yes, it contains gaps. So it does allow plasma proteins and it does allow macrophages to go in and out. This is the liver right here. And here is the spleen on the other side. And see how it is attached by a ligament to keep it in place. Here is how it looks like. Obviously, the spleen is right here. Your liver is in the right side, right? And your spleen is on the other side, on the left side. Okay, splenectomy, just like any other ectomy, ectomy means removing. Splenectomy is removing the spleen. It can be removed, it can be ruptured, and there is a common situation. I don't know if you guys heard about it or not. Did we hear about the infectious mononucleosis or the kissing disease? If you heard about this before, this disease is a viral infection and it affects the spleen. If especially if come to the girls, if a girl is affected, she has to be very careful because in that case the spleen is very fragile and it can rupture easily. So this is it's not related to this, just general information that if anyone is infected with infectious mononucleosis, should be very careful. It's very common to have the spleen fragile and it can actually rupture. But removing the spleen in general is called splenectomy. Now, immunity. Immunity is our defense, our resistance to infection. It's the body reaction, and it is what actually protect us. And we have two types. The type number one is innate or non-specific. Type number two is adaptive or specific. Remember, I've been saying that from the beginning. When you see two names, you are responsible for both of them. You can't remember innate only and not the non-specific. You have to remember both of them. Innate, obviously, this is what we are born with, and it is non-specific. So, like your skin, aren't you born with your skin? Of course, right? So, is that innate? Yes. But what do you mean by non-specific? It means it does not protect you against something specifically. It protects you against anything. So, we call it non-specific. Bacteria coming to your skin, it will protect you. What kind of bacteria? It doesn't matter. It's not specific. Virus doesn't matter. Toxin, it doesn't matter, right? Anything. So it's non-specific. And I'm giving you skin as an example only. But you have the skin, you have the mucous membrane, you have all secretions, including your tears, your saliva. All secretions are types of physical barriers. So we are talking about the non-specific that it protects you against what? Anything, any invading agent. Do you mean invading pathogen? Not necessarily. Agent mean anything, whatever it is. Adaptive, on the other hand, obviously, adapt means something that you gain later. You work on it later. You're not born with it. And this is the specific one. And specific means I protect you against this pathogen only. This is my job. Okay, so that's what it means by being specific. And this is the function of the T and B lymphocytes. We talked about those before a little bit in the blood. We will talk about it more now. Okay, so this one is specific. T and B are responsible for specific. And this will develop only when we start to grow up and we are exposed to different things. So they start to develop and activate, and we call that adaptive and specific. And it is, again, specific means specialized. So the three types of lymphocytes are T and B and NK. B, I talked about, both of them are generated, or we make it in the bone marrow, red bone marrow specifically, and they are activated in different spots. B, bone marrow, and T, thymus. NK is natural killer. What's natural killer? Is that T or B? No, this is a third category, and you can translate the name. It can give you a hint. Natural killer. It kills the natural cells. What natural cells? How does it kill natural cells? Yes, if your natural cells contain infection or cancer, do you need it? Of course not. But it's your cells. It's natural. Yes, but we don't need it. You don't even leave it alone. You get rid of it, right? What are you going to do with? Do you know what viral infection does to the cells? Viral infection get into the cells, occupy the nucleus, and it doesn't leave the cells until they are completely dead. So why do you keep cells like these, right? It's your cells. I understand that. It's cells. But now it's not only useless, it's actually harmful. Get rid of it. Natural killers. They kill cells if they are infected, cancers. Okay? Lymphopoiesis or lymphatopoiesis or lymphocytopoiesis, that's the same thing. What's lymphocyte mean? One of the white blood cells. What's poiesis? Generation. So this is the process of generation of the lymphocytes. Most of it, T or B, is in the bone marrow. However, the thymus and some of the lymphoid tissues, they help as well. And the mother cell here is the same one that we talked about. That's the mother cell or the grandmother cell for every single cells, which is hemocytoblast. This is the one that give you two mother cells. What are these mother cells? lympho, lymphoid stem cells, and myeloid stem cells. Myeloid stem cells is everything. The other one is just for the lymphocytes. This is how they develop. So we have lymphoid stem cells is our focus now because these are the ones that are responsible for the lymphocytes, which is our main thing today. And they are formed in the bone marrow, and it's arranged in two groups. Group one is the one that makes the B and NK. Group two is the one that makes the T. So here it is: hemocytoblast, lymphoid stem cells, and myeloid stem cells. We're not talking about the myeloid now. Lymphoid stem cells are two types: one and two. One make N and NK and B, and the other one makes the B, the T. I mean. Okay, so what's the function of each one of those? I told you about the NK, and in order to do that, the NK, they are responsible for something called immune surveillance. Immune surveillance. They go around all the time in the blood, moving around, and they look for anything abnormal. When they find cells that are either infected by virus, virally infected, or cancerous or foreign, this is treated as if it is infected because look at this. When this is your cell, how the immune system attack your own cells if it contain virus? How does it know? Like, does our immune system see what are these cells and what's happening? Of course, the immune system doesn't know anything about it. There is a mechanism. What is that mechanism? On the cells, every single cell in our body, there is an antigen on the surface, right? This antigen is like the address. It tells you what is this. So here's what happened. If this cell is infected by virus or if it contains cancer, it's going to change its own antigen. Okay, like if there is like people coming and invading houses and you want to tell everybody else that your house is invaded, you can put like a red flag or something to tell everybody else that I got something here, I have an issue here, right? So this is what they do. They remove or mask their antigen and change it to something else. So your immune system, in this case, it is the NK or immune surveillance. When they go around, how did you know that this cell's infected by virus? The antigen changed. It's not their normal antigen. It's the same cells, yes, but they do change, which apply to foreign cells because foreign cells have a different antigen. By the same mechanism, these natural killers, they don't know. All what they look for is antigen. Show me the antigen. This is your cells. I don't care. Does it have an abnormal antigen? Yes, this is my target. I'm going to attack those. Uh, the other type, which is the B cells, are responsible for something called antibody-mediated immunity or humoral. You should remember this. Antibody-mediated or humoral. Humoral. Okay? Humoral means secretions, fluids, secrete something in a fluid. Humoral. Antibody-mediated, humoral. You should remember this. T lymphocytes, on the other hand, are cell-mediated immunity. So there is antibody-mediated and cell-mediated, beside the natural killer. I'm talking about T and B now. Are we following? Natural killers. Okay, this is one. T and B. What's the function of B? Antibody-mediated or humoral. The other one is T, cell-mediated immunity. What's the difference? Here is the difference just to make it closer and understandable. If we have like a couple of police officers and they are trying to arrest somebody who's violent or something, they do not all of them go and attack him, right? Some of them stay away with the guns and some of them physically engage and try to arrest him, right? So those who are actually going physically and arresting him physically, these are the cell mediated. The cells themselves fight. The antibody mediated is like this other police officer staying away with a gun and he can shoot from far away. Did he physically engage? No, he's shooting if needed, right? And these B lymphocytes doing the same thing. They are going to shoot. Of course, it's not really shooting, but they are going to shoot as if antibodies from far away. Do they engage? The cells engage? No, they do not engage. If they engage, we call it cell mediated. This immunity is mediated by cells. The cells themselves fight. Antibody mediated, the cells themselves, which is a B, they do not engage. They secrete antibodies. Before they can, again, everything that I'm saying is important and I'm skipping the non-important ones. You have to know it. Before the B cells secrete the antibody, they need to maturate to something called plasma cells. Can the B cells are responsible for antibody? Yes, but you should maturate to plasma cells before you be able to do it. Okay? And look at this, B cells. We need antibodies. I'm going to maturate into plasma cells, and then when I am mature and I'm a plasma cells now, I'm going to secrete the antibodies, and the antibodies are the ones that are going to attack the foreign agent or the pathogens or whatever it is. So for the cell-mediated immunity, we call it cytotoxic. Like this, antibody-mediated, we call it humoral. This is called cytotoxic. Why? Because cytotoxic. These are targeting cells, Cytotoxic. They are toxic to the cells, cells attacking cells. So we call it cytotoxic cells. And this one is called cell-mediated immunity. So let's get some details about the specific and non-specific. The non-specific blocks anything that's trying to invade you. And this includes physical barriers. This is one. Phagocytes, immune surveillance that we talked about, interferon, complement, inflammation, and fever, and we have to know all of these. Some details about each one of those. But if I ask you which of the following is not an innate, for example, and I give you physical barrier, phagocytes, interferon, complement, and T lymphocytes, or antibody mediated, for example, or cell mediated. which one is not innate. It's a cell mediated, and vice versa. Okay, so you should know these. These are the different things that are responsible for the innate, meaning you are born with all of these. And all of these are non-specific. They help you against anything. So let's take it one by one. Physical barrier is skin and mucous membrane plus secretions. Skin, you know the difference between skin and mucous membrane? Skin, mucous membrane is from inside. The same, like the skin is from outside, the mucous membrane is from inside. You have a cover from outside and you have lining from inside. So if you look inside your mouth, inside any cavity inside your body or any hollow organ, the lining inside is called mucous membrane. So I have those two. One is outside, which is the skin, not only the skin and its appendages, right? Nail, hair, secretions. Are we following? We talked about this in 233. What are the skin appendages? Nails, hair, right? Sebaceous glands, sweat glands. Do you remember these? So it's the skin and its appendages, including the secretions and mucous membrane from inside. These are physical barriers. And that's why once you get injured, this is when you get infected, isn't it? What happened when you get injured? You get infected, right? Unless if you catch it really fast and you like clean it or something. But if you don't do that, the pathogens are all over your body all the time. All the time. It's inside your body all the time. All these organisms are surrounding us. It's in your mouth, it's in your nose, it's in your skin, it's everywhere. But they do not attack us because our skin is intact. Our mucous membrane is intact. Once you're injured, you are opening the way for them. You're opening the physical barrier. They can easily get in. And that's why if you have like a cut wound or something, if you don't clean it immediately, you get infection. Because once you open for them, they are already there. Once they find an opening, they get in. You're cutting the physical barrier for them. Number two are the phagocytes. Phagocytes, they eat anything. Is that specific? They eat everything. Non-specific. They eat virus? Yes. Bacteria, foreign body, toxins, they eat anything. So phagocytes are non-specific. This is number two. And there are big and small ones. The big ones are called macrophages, right? Macrophages come from which white blood cells? Which white blood cells? Monocytes, yes, monocytes. The macrophages come from monocytes. And the microphage come from? It's, I told you, men, M-E-N. Men eaters. Men phagocytes. M, monocyte. This is a macro. E-N is for the micro. What's the E-N? Eosinophils and neutrophils. Yes. Men, just remember men. Men are eaters. Men like to eat. Remember this way. M-E-N, 3. M, monocyte, big. E-N, macrophages, they are the eosinophil and neutrophil. Macrophages, some of them are fixed and some of them are free. What do you mean? I mean, some of them are inside your alveoli in the lung. They stay there. They do not go anywhere. Okay? I'm not moving anywhere. I'm fixed. If something pass by, if something come to me, I will deal with it. Now, if not, I'm not moving anywhere. Free, on the other hand, are the ones that are floating and moving around all the time. They are like in the bloodstream, they are everywhere, free to move. They go and find something. So we have two types of those macrophages. The immune surveillance are the NK, and we talked about the NK. They kill your cells if virally infected, cancer, or foreign. Virally infected, cancer, foreign. This is the NK. So we got 3 now of the innate. Interferon. This is the next one. And interferon is released from lymphocytes and macrophages, or from the virally infected cells. 3 cells secreted. your own macrophages, lymphocytes, and virally infected cells. And this interferon is to interfere, and this is where the name came from, to interfere with the viral replication. And this is where the name came from. Interferon, to interfere with the viral replication. So even your own cells, if they are infected with virus, they release this. And this is going to, it doesn't really like block it completely, but it just interfere with the it slow down the replication. And this is where the name came from. Okay. Let me give you just a little piece of information. It's not here just for you. Like we always think that if like I got flu or I got colds or something, the virus make me like feel sick and I feel like bone ache and muscle aches, right? We always think about it this way, right? You know what's giving you these aches? It's not the virus. It's your own interferon. Okay, interferon that's secreted from your own cells. It does help you, but it gives you that sensation. So these weird sensation or these bad sensations of body ache and muscle aches and all that stuff, it's coming from your own interferon. It help you, but at the same time, it give you that pain and all these things. Complement. Complement is the next one. It's also a system of proteins in the body that complement. Listen to this because this is the main point. Like I told you about interferon, you have to know this is the basics. What does it mean? This is the minimum. Interferon, interfere with viral replication. You cannot forget this. Complement, it complements the function of the antibodies. This is where the name came from. If you forget anything, you cannot forget this. Okay? It complements the function of the antibodies. How does it help them? It's help the antibodies to destroy the pathogens. Okay? They make like a perforation. It make like an opening or something. It helps the antibodies to do their job. Look at this complement. They go into this like pathogen. They stick on it so that the antibodies, when they come, they find this already helping them against the pathogens. That's why they call it complement. Inflammation is the next one. And I think we're all familiar with the inflammation. What are the signs of inflammation, local signs? What do you notice when you have inflammation? This area is redness, heat, puffiness or swelling. One more, pain and loss of function. Pain and loss of function. Okay. So this is basically inflammation. And when you think about it, inflammation is something annoying, right? When you see you have inflammation, you feel pain, it is warm, it is hot, right? Swelling and right? Yes, but all of that is happening for a reason. If you have whatever the reason of inflammation is not necessarily infection. It can be anything. Did you ever get like a little splinter into your skin and you got inflamed? It's anything that is foreign to your body is going to cause this inflammation. And here is what happened with the inflammation simply. If you have an inflammation, there is a big chance that you have infection and you need to fight this infection. How are you fighting this infection? You have cells that are called mast cells. Mast cells. These mast cells are going to secrete two H's. And you have to remember this. Mast cells secrete two H's. I talked about this before, but refresh your information. The two H's. What are the two H's? Histamine and heparin. Histamine is, what does it do? Vasodilation. Yes, vasodilation. Histamine is vasodilation, right? Do you know why if you have colds or something and you feel congested, you take the cold medicine? You know what does this cold medicine does? It's antihistaminic. How does it relieve my congestion? Yes, congestion is vasodilation, right? Congestion is congested with blood, meaning it's vasodilated and there is a lot of blood in this area. So if you take medication, it's antihistaminic, so you constrict so that you clear your airways you remove the congestion. Make sense? Does that make sense? So who is responsible for vasodilation? Histamine. What if I give you antihistamine? Constrict. So the congestion goes away, right? So histamine is one of the things released from the mast cells, and it is released for some reason, which is dilation. Why do you want to dilate? To bring more blood into this area. This area is inflamed. I need more blood to come. And when more blood is coming, it comes with everything that's going to help me. It's going to bring the macrophages and the microphages and the lymphocytes and everything else. So you need it there. And when more blood goes there, the blood is um, core blood is higher temperature than the normal outside blood, right? The core blood is at least 1 or 2 degrees higher, right? So when it goes from the core into your skin, it got heat, get more heat. Okay, so vasodilation bring blood that is warmer, and that's what explain it. Why this area is warmer. Swelling. Where are the swelling coming from? Same thing. When you vasodilate, more blood come, pores open more, components of the blood squeeze out in this area, it becomes swelling, right? So this is what the mast cells are doing, causing the inflammation. All what you see in the inflammation is by the mast cells. They also activate the complement and they activate the macrophage. Beside all of this, they activate complement and they activate um, macrophages. They also activate the adaptive defense that might come later. What's the adaptive defense? Is that specific or non-specific? Specific. So it does activate that comes later on. Fever. What's a normal body temperature? 37 or 98, 98.6. Okay, this is the average. It can be 0.7, 0.8, that's okay. But the average is always 98.6, right? This is your normal body temperature. How is fever part of your immune system? So it's something good, isn't it? Innate system is there to protect us. What's the fever has to do with this? The fever is going to do the following. It's good, not absolute, but it's helping you. How? Different ways. Number one, the pathogens that invade you, they love your normal body temperature. They love it. Okay? So when your body temperature goes up, it's bad for them, right? They get deactivated. This is one. Most of the invaders, the pathogens, when they invade you, all of them, they like your normal body temperature. It's perfect. 37, this is amazing. I'm gonna invade you. I feel comfortable. But when your body temperature goes up, it get deactivated. It's bad for them. Like, isn't it nicer to work in a nice weather, not a hot weather, right? If it's getting hot, you can't work, right? This is what's happening for these pathogens. This is one. Number two, it activates your metabolism. This is a fact. When you have more heat, you're activating metabolism. And when you activate metabolism, you have more energy to fight. Okay? This is number two. Number three, the heat itself dilate more and more blood come to you. Isn't that all useful? Isn't that all helpful if you think about it? It is helpful. So fever, but let me differentiate between fever and hyperthermia or like extreme. I'm not talking about this. Fever that goes with the disease, the normal fever is a little bit. It goes up a little bit. Okay. 37 become 37.5, maybe 38 or something. I'm not talking about 40. 40 is harmful to the pathogens, but it's harmful to you, right? It can ruin the brain, especially for the babies. So here is the skin, including the skin appendages. All, so skin appendages, mucous membrane, plus all secretions, just like this. All secretions. Sweat, yes. Sebaceous secretion, yes. Nasal secretions, yes. The saliva, yes. The tears, yes. Any type of secretion. Urine, even the urine, yes. Okay, all of these flush out or protect you against the pathogens. Most of these contain enzymes and antibodies. Okay, how about the stomach fluid? Any fluid. That's it. Any fluid. No exception. All fluids are physical barriers. They protect you. Okay, plus or minus, they are physical barriers to protect you, and a lot of them will have antibodies and enzymes. Here is the phagocytes, and I talked about that already. Micro, the small ones that come from the EN, men eater. Remember it. M for monocytes, macro or micro. Monocytes, macro, the big ones. How about the EN? Micro, the small ones, eosinophil and neutrophils. So macrophages are the big eaters. They move to the pathogen. Being eaters, they eat it, right? And then what? And then they send messengers, chemical messengers, to attract the other types of cells, T and B. Macrophages, they go, attack, eat, destroy, but they are not enough. They just start the process for you, but they are not enough. They send chemicals to attract the rest of the white blood cells, specifically lymphocytes. The other name for fixed macrophages is histocytes. I don't have to repeat. Two names, right? Fixed macrophages are called histocytes. Why did you call it histocytes? Histo means tissues. Histocytes are the tissue cells, the tissue macrophage. This is macrophage that's stuck on these tissues, and this is where the name came from. Examples here are microglia, for example. This is in the nervous system. We talked about those before. Do we still remember? No? No? Do you remember microglia? Uh, no? In the nervous system? Okay. We have also satellite macrophage in sinusoids. And then we have the free macrophages. These are the ones that travel everywhere. Some of them travel in your alveoli. Do you remember the alveoli? We did most of the respiratory system. Do you remember that model that was on desk that goes like bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, until it go to the alveoli? The alveoli is the last part. Inside the alveoli, there are some of these macrophages that are moving around, and this is your last resort for something to goes in to your body in the respiratory system specifically. Here is what I mean. When you breathe, you want to breathe clean air, right? Do you actually breathe clean air? Is the air here clean anywhere? Of course not. Of course not. So what happened here is when you breathe in, the air goes in, and the first thing that it will see is the hair inside your nose. It will trap some. And then the mucous membrane with mucus secretion in it, it will trap some more. And then, of course, that's not still, it's not 100% clean, right? Not enough. So the air moving in, still not clean. It's cleaner, but not clean yet, right? So it moves in. There are these um, pseudocolumnar cells that have like these brush-like cells. They swipe it off, they sweep it off, trying to get rid of some of it. They do. Is it clean? Not yet, still. So some of it will go down until it reaches to the alveoli, including dust. Macrophages are waiting for them, for this dust that escaped all of this. Okay? And they're going to eat it, hence the name dust cells, phagocytic dust cells. I think that the story is clear now. So macrophages, they did their part and they attacked, they started to eat, everything is okay. And then you're going to send chemicals to attract other white blood cells. Chemical attraction is called chemotaxis. Remember this, chemotaxis. Chemo is chemical. Taxis is attraction. Translation. Chemotaxis is chemical attraction. Okay? Chemical attraction of what? Of other white blood cells. Okay? One of the things that are going to help us with the natural or the natural defense or the innate defense or the non-specific are these immunological surveillance that we talked about. It's natural killers. They kill cells that have abnormal antigen for whatever reason, viral infection, cancer, foreign cells, and they are going to release something called perforin. What does it sound? What does it sound similar to? Perforin, perforation. We know what's perforation when you make an opening, right? Perforation. So perforin is it's something that's going to make perforation in the pathogens. So when the pathogens are opened, it's very easy to kill them, right? And this is how they do it. They make an opening into the cells. The cells now are opened. They can easily be destroyed. So it is going to be destroyed. So look at this. This is an abnormal cell. This is a natural killer. What does it do? It's going to kill these cells. How does it kill it? Perforin or perforin is going to make an opening, and things are going to go in, and this cell is going to collapse. It's going to be destroyed. And this is how they destroy it, perforin specifically. So the attached Golgi apparatus help them to produce perforin. Look at this. They make opening, and these molecules gets inside, making more openings until the cells collapse or destroyed. Um, I mentioned before that the normal cells have normal antigen on the surface, right? Abnormal cells have abnormal antigen. And this is how our immune system attack when you have abnormal antigen. But guess what? Unfortunately, some types of cancers, they can mask that abnormal uh, antigen. And they call that escape. It's a very weird phenomenon. Normally, any cells that contain cancer or infection or foreign, all of them, they have abnormal antigen on top of them. So the immune system know that these are abnormal cells. But guess what? Some cancers, for some unknown reason, they mask it. They cover it. So when the immune system come, it looks normal to them. Okay? So they do not attack. And this is their way of escaping. They call it immunological escape. Interferon, I give you the bottom line, interfere with the viral replication. It's considered one of the cytokines. What are cytokines? Cyto cells, kine activators or movers. So they do um, activate other cells, cytokines, cells activator. There are three types of this interferon: alpha interferon, beta interferon, and gamma interferon. The alpha come from the virally infected cells. B or beta come from fibroblasts. It's in the inflammation. And the last one, gamma, is the one that comes from the T cells, a natural killer. And this is the one that stimulate macrophage. And this is the one, so it's alpha and gamma. These are the two that we are focusing on. These are the two that interfere with the viral replication in case of they are infected or contain cancer or something. B is something exception. It's just for in inflammation. It is alpha, beta, gamma, and I want you to know where is it secreted from. Alpha from cells that are virally infected. Beta, inflammation. Gamma, T cells and NK cells. Complement, it's something to complement the function of antibodies to destroy the pathogens. There are different pathways to activate this complement cascade. Cascade means step after step after step. Do you guys remember in the blood when we did this extrinsic and intrinsic pathway and it goes step by step by step and you go like until you get to the fibrinogen being activated to fibrin. We call this a cascade. So there are different pathways for the complement to be activated. One of them is called the classical one, and there are other pathways, and I'm not going to focus much on this. Just understand that there are three pathways for the complement to be activated. And the bottom line is the help the antibody, the complement, the function of antibody, and this is going to lead to killing the pathogens by lysis. They make, specifically here is one word that I want you to know. What do we need to know about the complement? It complements the function of the antibodies to kill the pathogens. This is number one. There are three different pathways to activate it, irrespective of the details. How they kill? They form something called MAC, membrane attack complex. These proteins, complement are proteins. They make something called membrane attack complex with the membrane. The other thing is they make something called or enhance something called opsonization. When you opsonize something, means you make it more edible, make it more easy to phagocytose. They also help the inflammation. So understand these. They help killing the pathogens by sticking on them. They enhance opsonization, and they form the MAC. Plus, they are involved in inflammation. Inflammation, we talked about the local signs: redness, swelling, heat, and pain. Okay, so you should remember these are called the. Remember this. This is not called the signs of inflammation. That's not right. It's called local or cardinal signs. There are other signs that are general. Okay, when you get inflammation, what you see and what you guys said is the local ones, the one that you can see with your eyes, right? It's right here, it's red, it's hot, right? This is called local or cardinal. There are other signs that are called general signs, and it's not as important. And we talked about how the inflammation is going to help. At the end of the inflammation, there will be some of your cells that are going to die. Inflammation is exactly like this, like something foreign in your body, and there will be a fight, right? You know what's when you have a pathogen and you have your white blood cells, they are going to fight. Of course, your white blood cells are not going to just kill the pathogens and that's it. No, some pathogens are killed, and some of your white blood cells are killed as well, and some of the tissues are also destroyed. Right? Like if let's say that we split into two groups here, and we start the fight. Some of this group will be affected. Some of this group will be affected, and the chairs and the desks are going to be destroyed. Right? Some of it. This is the product of the fight. We call that pus. We call that pus. So what's pus? The product of inflammation. What is it? Killed cells from you, killed pathogens, destroyed cells and tissues, debris. If you put all of this together and put it in a fluid or liquid form, we call that pus. Did you have this before? Like you have this pumpy white, right? And sometimes you open it, sometimes you leave it. What's inside is pus. What's the pus? The product of this fight. Normally, this pus will go away and the body will get rid of it. But sometimes it gets entrapped, fibrous tissue surrounded, and keep it in there. Does it go away? No, it doesn't go away. It is all surrounded by fibrous tissue. How can you even reach it? Right? We call that abscess. And how you get rid of the abscess? You open it. Did anybody got abscess before? Did you see how they open it? And they put like a piece of gauze inside? This is because it's all surrounded by fibrous tissue. So how can you even reach anything inside of it? You have to open it. And they put a piece of gauze to make sure it stay opened. Otherwise, it will close again. They put temporarily a piece of gauze in there that's hanging, and they tell you leave it for now. So it stay opened until you dry it out, you get rid of everything, and then they remove it. Everything goes back to normal. So this is abscess. So this is the whole thing. You got tissue damage, you get the mast cells. Mast cells secrete heparin and histamine, and we talked about those two before. What they do, bringing more cells and closing the bleeding, stopping the bleeding, make a blood clot, clean the area, and then tissue repair to replace it. Fever, I talked about it, and here are the three. Increase metabolic rate, giving you more energy, activate your body defense, inhibit many of the pathogens. Pyrogen, pyro means fire or heat. Gen, generator, yes, generate. So pyrogen is fever generators. Pyrogen, fever generators. So fever generators are, or fever inducing agents. This can come from any infection. In the infection, there is chemicals released and they go to activate your hypothalamus. And simply, here is what's happening. If you guys remember the homeostasis, to remember the homeostasis with the hypothalamus keeping your blood, your body temperature in a normal range, like the air condition. Do we remember that? Imagine somebody jumped into your house and you are putting your air condition on 70, and somebody jumped in and put it on 80. What's going to happen in your house? The temperature goes up, right? And you will be really hot, right? It's exactly like this. So this chemical, pyrogen, will jump and go to your set point in your hypothalamus, change it, move it. So now, guess what? Hypothalamus will say, what is this? Like it's my body temperature. Like what's a normal set point for the hypothalamus? 37 or 98.6, isn't it? What's your set point in your house? You put it on 70, you put it on 65, right? This is what you need. For your body, same thing. Your body put a set point of 37 or 98.6. What if the body temperature goes up? It will bring it down. What if it goes down? You bring it up. Clear? This is normal, right? But in this case, the pyrogens change the set point to something else. Let's say make it 38. So guess what? Hypothalamus will say, my set point is 38 and the body is 37. I'm going to increase it somehow. And your hypothalamus will end up increasing that body temperature. Did we understand the mechanism of doing this? There are different types of pyrogens. Can be from outside, it can be from inside. We call it endogenous and exogenous. Next is the adaptive or specific one, and this is basically T and B. T, cytotoxic, this is the first one that we already talked about. This is the one for cell mediated. What do you call the ones with B lymphocytes? It's not cell mediated. What is it? Huh? Yes, antibody mediated. What's the other name? Humoral. Antibody mediated humoral. Cell mediated T, right? Which cells? Cytotoxic T. Specifically, cytotoxic. Cells attacking cells. Cytotoxic. Okay? Are the only cells? No, this is the one that we're talking about all the time. Okay? But there are other types. T helper, regulatory, and memory T cells. These are the other three that you have to know. Helper cells. Are these cells help T? It's T helper. It help T? No. It is type of T cells that help both of them, T and B. And guess what? Unfortunately, these are the ones that get invaded by AIDS virus. AIDS virus invade these cells. It leave everything in the body and just invade this one. Without these helper cells, T and B will not get help. If they don't get help, they will not be activated. If they're not activated, you lose your immunity. And this is how the AIDS work. just invading the helper cells. You cannot live without the helper cells. They help activating T and B. You don't have T helper cells, there is no help for T and B to be activated. They are not going to do the job. You do not have the specific immunity. And then what AIDS people with AIDS, if they ended up dying, what they die with, most likely? What do you think? Infection. Infection. You are protected. Yes, because you have the T helper cells. Your T and B are working fine. You activate them fine. They are protecting you. They don't have that. Unfortunately, these are invaded. These are destroyed. So now you don't activate so anything. Pneumonia. You get pneumonia, take antibiotics. No, that's normal people. But you don't have good working T and B because of this. So any infection comes, they cannot fight it. And this is a function of helper cells. Regulatory, nothing much. It's just regulate the immune response. Memory cells are the cells that memorize, or the cells that keep a memory for what happened before. Okay, they keep a memory. Like, what if this was your first time ever? There is always first time for any type of infection, right? If this is your first time ever as a baby to get flu, right? Of course, your immune system doesn't know anything about this. This is your first time ever to see the virus. So, same scenario, virus is in, and then your macrophage will go, eat it, chemotaxis, bringing other cells, B cells release their antibodies, T cells, cytotoxic, they eat. Are we good so far? And then what? And then you start the fight. And by the time this virus is killed and kicked out of the body, you do not stop at this. You leave some cells to remind you with this fight. These are called the memory cells. So you know what's going to happen next time? When the flu cells or influenza cells, when they come and invade you, memory cells will tell you, by the way, I still remember this. And this is what we did 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start and you go faster and more efficient. So the first time that you get infected is always worse than any other time. It's longer and more magnitude. Does that make sense? If it's the first time, you need to discover what should I do? What is this? Should I release these antibodies? Should I replace it with this? You take your time. But the next time, the memory cells will remind you, right? So these are the memory cells. And that explain why secondary infection is shorter and lighter than primary infection. The first time ever that you got this uh, infection. Regulatory, I talked about it. It regulates inflammation. So regulate means they can suppress or induce. They can activate or inhibit. This is what's meant by regulatory. B cells, on the other hand, they secrete antibodies, and that's why you call it antibody mediated, right? But B cells need to be maturated to what before releasing the antibodies? Plasma cells. Plasma cells. Natural killers, we talked about it. So here it is, four types, and B cells and NK. And this is the cell-mediated or cellular immunity versus antibody-mediated. That's also called humoral. Here is the adaptive again. What's the adaptive? Is that specific or non-specific? Specific. Cell-mediated, which cells? T or B? T. Antibody-mediated? B. T cells. Do the cells fight or secrete antibodies? The cells fight, cytotoxic. And these secrete antibodies. Both of them will destroy the antigen. Antigen, generally speaking, is a chemical on top of the cells for the immune system to identify. If this is foreign antigen, this is going to activate your system and you will work against them. Now, we have innate and we have adaptive, right? We talked about those. Innate, is that specific or non-specific? And you're born with it, right? Adaptive, you get adapt, means it takes you time. You're not born with it. And this is specific, right? The other two things are Active or passive immunity? What's active or passive immunity? Active immunity is you generate this immunity after being exposed to the antigen. Passive, on the other hand, meaning you make an effort. You already involved in a fight. You dealt with the fight. You produced your antibody because of that fight with the virus. And so you did an effort to produce this immunity, and that's why we call it active. The other one is called passive. What's passive? You don't do any effort. I give you something that's ready to use. You don't do any effort. Example, the fetus. Do you know that the fetus take the antibodies from the mom through the placenta? Did the baby or the fetus did anything? Definitely not. Was the fetus exposed to anything? Nothing. He just get it ready to use. Did he do any effort? No, passive. Another thing, if you go to the hospital and they say, okay, your infection is too bad and your body's not working good, I'm going to give you some antibodies in a serum or something. They give it to you. They can't give you antibodies. Did you do any effort? They just gave it to you. So they call that passive. So it's all about, did you make an effort to make it, or did you get it ready to use? This is exactly, I always give this example like pizza. You can call Pizza Hut, they give you pizza, you eat it. Did you do anything? Nothing. Versus I can give you some flowers and some milk and some this and that, and I ask you to do it from scratch. This is active, right? So that's exactly what it is. So this will bring us to the following. And this is very important, and I'm going to ask you about it for sure. Okay? Understand the following. Did you get the first one? It's innate or adaptive. Okay? Active or passive. Okay? The acquired or the adaptive one, we call it acquired. Okay? Are we following so far? The adaptive one is called acquired. All right? Now I'm talking about the adaptive ones, the one that you gained. Okay? We said it can be active or passive, right? Active or passive. Okay. The other thing is it can be natural or induced. So, active or passive, natural or induced. We have four words that we're going to alternate between them, and I want you to definitely know this. This is important. Okay? If I give you a type of immunity, you tell me two things: active or passive, natural or artificial. Or artificial is also called induced. I'll give you four examples here and think with me. It's all understanding. Okay? You got exposed to infection and you're fighting this infection and you make your antibodies. Is that something, your immune system that you created at this point, is that active or passive? Active. Is that something natural or artificial? Everybody get infection. This is something natural. Is it, this is something that happened intentionally? Did you get like the virus and inject yourself with the virus? Or something that happened naturally? Naturally. So what do we call it? Natural, active. Clear? Okay. Vaccine. Is that active or passive? Vaccine, not antibodies. Active. You know what happened? Don't you did you get vaccinated? Don't you have some issues when you get vaccinated? Don't you feel like some fever and some pain and stuff? You know what's happening? What you know what's a vaccine? It's not antibodies. What's a vaccine? It's the virus. Killed virus, part of the virus, something looks like the virus. So basically, they induce it, they inject virus into your body and you fight. Is that passive? No, it's not antibodies. It's not antibodies. It is active. But is that something artificial or natural? Artificial. So what do you call the vaccine? Active artificial or induced. Okay. Number three, a fetus in his mom's uterus and getting antibodies. Is that active or passive? Passive. Is that natural or induced? Natural. Every fetus get it automatically, right? Okay, last scenario. You are in a hospital They give you IV antibodies. Is that active or passive? Passive. Is that natural or induced? Induced. Did you get the four scenarios? Okay. Definitely, I'm going to ask you about this. So here it is. Active, it can be natural or artificial. Passive, it can be natural or artificial. Some of the characteristics of the adaptive defense is we already called it one, what? Specific or non-specific? Specific. So one of the characteristics is specificity. Specificity. So the attack specific antigen. Here is my job. I am responsible for hepatitis virus. When I see this specific antigen, I will fight. If I don't see it, I'm not getting involved. Isn't that specific? How about the flu? It's not my job. I'm specific. Another lymphocyte will do it. Okay, so it is specific. I care about. I am programmed to deal with this type of antigen only. That's it. This is what specificity means. Versatility means you produce different types of lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are going to clone themselves. Like you produce a bunch of lymphocytes, okay? These lymphocytes found themselves that these are the ones that are needed. They are going to clone themselves and increase themselves versus the one that are not or should not be there. Versatility. Memory and tolerance. Memory, some of the cells, lymphocytes got involved. They are not fighting. They're just watching, got involved. They stay after everything is over. They don't go away. They stay so that next time, new exposure, uh, you already know the plan and you already know what to do. And this is why we call it the memory cells. Uh, that's what I want you to know about the memory cells. But let me just tell you this extra information here. Memory cells. Does the memory cells lives forever? Like you got infected when you are like 6 months. Does it stay with you until you die? Not necessarily. How long does it stay? It's different from something to something. Example, how many times you think you can get measles? One time in your life. Do you know that? If you got actually infected with measles, you get it one time for life. Why? Because the memory cells here are lifelong. And you get flu, and next week you can get flu again. So what do you think about the memory cells? Their span is 7 days, 10 days, right? You get hepatitis and you get 6 months, for example. So this is the lifespan of the memory cells. It's different from something to something. Of course, I don't want you to know all of these lifespans and all that stuff. I'm just giving you an idea that memory doesn't stay for life, and it's different from antigen to antigen. Tolerance is something normal. You should tolerate your own cells. Your immune system should tolerate your own cells. Here's exactly what's happening in our body. I get to know all my antigens, all of them, and I should memorize all of them. If I have 50 different types of antigen, I have a list of them. I have to remember them. Never attack them. This is called tolerance or self antigen. This is my own antigen. But does it sometimes happen that you forget that this is your antigen and you attack? What do you call this? Autoimmunity. Autoimmunity. It's your own antigen, and you should not fight them, should not attack them. Yes, I forgot. It's happened for some reason. We don't know, but it might happen. And those are the people who get the autoimmune response. Antigen presentation. What's antigen presentation? The name gave it away. I'm going to present you the antigen. I'm here to present the antigen to the rest of the body. These are called antigen presenting cells. The first cells that met the antigen and dealt with it, they are going to present that antigen to your immune system. Did you get the meaning? Antigen presenting cells, the cells that present the antigen to the rest of the cells. Okay, it's usually T cells plus macrophages. Those two are the first two to deal with the antigen. And when other cells come, they will tell them, okay, let me present antigen, this antigen to you. We are been fighting. We started the fight. And let me give you an idea. Antigen presenting cells. Um, Major histocompatibility complex. These are some glycoproteins. These are specific type of antigens that are different from tissue to tissue. Another type of antigen. And these antigens are important for compatibility. If compatibility is if you're getting like donation like kidney or something, don't they sometimes tell you no, this person cannot donate to you, right? You know what they are doing? The MHC. It's not only the blood type. This is a type. They get a sample from his kidney, a sample from your kidney, and they get his MHC and your MHC, and they see if they match or not. If they don't match, they will tell you no, it wouldn't work. And of course, it makes sense that MHC is similar if like this is parents or children or like first degree relatives is more is better than second degree and so on. But it doesn't mean that a foreign person or somebody else does not have a matching one. But just I want you to just understand the histocompatibility, major histocompatibility complex, and this is something that's has to be matched before matching any cells, generally speaking, not just donation. This type of proteins is different classes. Class one, this is in the membranes of all nucleated cells, all of them. This is what I want you to remember. Type one, all nucleated cells. This is a normal protein. It will. This is the one that become abnormal if the tissues or the cells are invaded. Type 2 is only in APCs, antigen presenting cells, like macrophages, like lymphocytes. Okay? These are the different types of MHC, and I'm going to stop here.